Hi everybody, welcome to Drumfills Cafe in English. So if you guys didn't know, we have more than 400 interviews recorded now. You can have access to all of these interviews on our website. So it's www.drumfillscafe.com, or you can go on our YouTube channel. You will have all of them in different sections. Some were live streaming, some were pre-recorded like we do today. So so feel free to discover all what we've done before. By the way, we interviewed people in English, Spanish, French, and Portuguese, so 4 languages. And we have like also contest, a lot of material you can discover. We have a small educational part. You can see like a free drum like rhythm and music sheets. So I invite you to discover that. If you're not a drummer, you can also take a look at our section, like not linked to drummer, but people in the music industry. So yeah, www.drumfillscafe.com. So let's go see our guest of the week, because I know him since like a lot of years. Let me talk with him about that. Hey Dan, how are you doing?
I'm great, Eric, and thank you very much for having me on your show. And you know, I'm one of your biggest fans. In addition to being a drummer and a lifelong passionate drummer, so I hold you in
Yeah,
the highest esteem. And to be on the same show as you, it's an honor. Thank you.
it's been a long time. We know each other. I think we've met back in beginning of the 2000 and 2001, 2, something like that, right?
Yeah, you were playing a show, and you're unbelievable. I thought this drummer's so good, I got to meet him. And so we went backstage and we met you, and we became friends ever since.
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah, it was in Toronto with the first Cavalia show in this case back in
Yes.
2003. That's a lot of years, 22 years. So well, I'm very happy you be there. So how have you been? I saw that you are always busy, like always doing shows, like going around taking picture because you're a good photographer. So how was life?
You know, life's been really busy. To stay focused on drums because of the fact, everybody here is obviously going to be a drummer. I'm excited about a lot of things, and I will tell you that I've been playing drums since I was 5 when I began formally studying drum lessons. I'm now 66. And so I've been playing drums for 51 years, and I was 51 years.
60,
What am I saying? 61
61.
years.
Yep.
61 years. And, some drummers can't count to 4. I can't count to 61. But anyway, so, it's been amazing. And I was talking to my son, Sabian, about this. And uh, I think in all this time, I've studied drums with teachers formally for 35 of those 61 years where I've had formal drum lessons. The last drum lessons I took, I was flying to Los Angeles to study with Dave Weckl, who's a dear friend and an amazing human, and he's superhuman, both as a drummer, as a recording engineer, and what a lot of people don't know is he's one of the world's best gourmet cooks. That's Dave Weckl.
That's
And
an
so,
amazing
in
drummer.
addition to being an author and a composer, an arranger, a band leader, so I'm a student of the drums. And when I listen to you play a show, and when I watch you play a show, there's so many things that go on in my mind in terms of your flow and the beauty with which your touch on the drums is so dynamically appropriate all the time. It's so musical with such great feel. To me, those are that's the essential things of playing music, using the drums as your musical instrument, and you've mastered that. And that's something that I'm a lifelong student of. And I look at great drummers in Toronto: Mark Kelso, Larnell Lewis. And there's Vito Rezza, who's just an incredible guy who's always reinventing the way he approaches the drums and pushing the parameters of what can be done. And then there's Paul DeLong. And Paul
Yep.
DeLong, if people don't know him, he's an author of a great a great drum book, a couple
Yep.
great drum books, videos. But Paul to me is the ultimate drum student. I'm a very, very dedicated drum student, but Paul is the ultimate drum student who is such a great drum student. I don't think he knows how good he is and how great he is because he's always evolving as a student. And so, when you ask me how am I doing, I'm very inspired by the people I'm around, by the people in the city the great city of Toronto, in the Greater Toronto area where I live. I actually live in Mississauga, just outside of Toronto. But I can go any night of the week to see Mark Kelso play, or to see Larnell Lewis, or Vito, or of course Paul. But there's a number of really great up and coming drummers, and I watched them on YouTube. We just had the World of Jazz Festival put on by Carmen Spada, who's a Berkeley grad and a great jazz pianist. And he's always bringing great drummers to his big bands and the different bands that he has. And that's always inspiring to be around. And, the great thing of being inspired is you're always learning. And you're always inquisitive, and there's a thing that happens with drummers where there's a syncopa, as my old Hungarian drum teacher used to say, a chemistry, if you will,
Yep.
where
Connection.
we want to share ideas. We want to share what books we're studying out of, and the Moeller method, or this method, or that method, and Jim Chapin or Jim Blackley, who's a legendary Canadian drum teacher, who's
Yep.
just he's got such a wonderful reputation. Unfortunately, he's no longer here, but his studies will live on through his students into perpetuity, because that's stuff that if you're a jazz drummer and you don't know about Jim Blackley, and you don't know about his books, and you don't know about his methods and the way he approached teaching jazz, that's a lifelong study. And to get in touch with some of his students, like Joel Yanuzzi, who's carrying on the tradition. He studied with Jim Blackley for 8 years. And, you get a guy like that, and you sign up with him for at least 2 years of lessons, not where you pay all at once up front, but more so you
Yeah,
make
no,
the
but
dedicated commitment to studying and learning. And you study different theories, and you study different approaches. There's so much to be inspired by.
yeah, I know. I saw your influences. You are being influenced by, like you were saying, like, because there's other names that on your biography. By the way, the outline you gave me are probably the best outline I received. I don't know for Dennis, the other host, but you sent me so many information. It was like really impressive. Like, and it's fun because you laid out all these information more like as a life path. So I could almost read a book of. Of what you did, where you went through, and that's pretty impressive. Actually, I didn't know that your father was a drummer, so I learned that, and I didn't know he was the person he was bringing you into concert and things like that. So can you talk a bit about that, because it looked like a big part of your early years as a musician.
Well, what's interesting is my dad played drums, yes,
Okay.
but his main instrument was saxophone, and
Oh,
he had
okay.
he had a Greek Macedonian wedding band that was the number one band in the Greater Toronto area, and he was so popular. He played every Saturday and Sunday for decades, and he was so popular because, well, he would hire the top Toronto studio musicians. He'd pay them before they played a note. So when you showed up to a gig, like if you were the drummer at his
It's
gig,
paid.
before you're paid, that's done. And then, he makes you feel good about yourself, makes you feel good about being on the stage with him. Then he always booked 6 hour gigs. So it would be
That's
2 hours of eating, because that's during the speeches and stuff when there was weddings.
Yep.
And then you play for 4 hours. But in the Greek and Macedonian tradition, they would throw money at the band. So
Yes, it's
back when
true.
I started playing in 1971, that's when my dad took me to the Toronto Musicians Association, Local 149, and he signed me up. I was 12 years old. We played a Macedonian wedding, and it was for a friend of my dad's son. And
Okay.
so we go and play the wedding, and the first dance that the bride and groom are doing in the Macedonian culture is called the bread dance, or in Macedonian it's the pogacha. And they're dancing kind of Zorba the Greek style, even though it's Macedonian, same
Yep.
idea. And so I see the lead dancer go to my dad. This is my dad's friend. And he whispered something in his ear. My dad turned around, he had the saxophone in his mouth, and he turned around and he said, "Keep going, keep going." So we keep going, and they're dancing. They go around another circle, another circle. Then all of a sudden, I see the
Yep.
lead dancer reach into his pocket, and all of a sudden, it's raining orange and brown, 50s and $100 bills. And so that night, we made $60 each. $10 an hour was the union scale from the Toronto Musicians Association, and we each made $820 in tips from that night. And
In
Eric, I can tell
71.
you, in 1971, and I can tell you it's been downhill ever since. I never made so much money in tips. But to go out and play a Macedonian wedding and make $200 or $300 a night, plus the $60 of pay, plus get fed and have music and or
That's
play
a pretty good
music
deal.
it was a good deal. And I grew up playing that. And my dad always got me the best teachers. And I was very lucky to have that influence through my dad.
Yeah, for sure. And this is funny because a lot of people don't realize that, but when you do like really like ethnic music, like Greek, like Jewish music, like
Yeah.
klezmer, for example, or like
Yeah.
Italian wedding or whatever, like you need to be into the style. And happened to me a few times. I said yes to to sub one friend, a drummer, like a Greek drummer from Montreal,
Hmm.
to play
Yeah.
in a wedding band. And I have no idea that my friend's like, it's gonna be very easy. You don't need to bring your drum. Everything is there, drumstick. They will, you just sit down, and some the conductor, you will have a chat with him, and he will tell you what to do. So I have a call. The guy was like, show up 1 hour before, I will tell you what to do. It was one of the most exhausted night I have to do in a gig, because and it's completely ethnic stuff. So there's so many rhythms that I didn't, that I didn't know. But like the speed of it, sometimes it's super fast, sometimes you slow down it, and you play for like 4, 5, 6 hours. I back home, and I was completely exhausted. And yeah, and I learned a lot of rhythms that night, because sometimes it's just like tuta 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 tuta, but just this to keep that running for 1 minute, okay, for 2 minutes, but for 4 hours, it's completely different story. So I know
Oh,
it.
yeah.
Yeah, and it's, yeah, and I think you learn from these experiences.
You
But that's
do.
fun.
Yeah.
Yep. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just going to share a quick anecdote. So my
Yep.
father would always hire the best drummers, right? But he always liked to play a joke on them. And the joke he'd
Okay.
play, he'd say, "There's a tune in Macedonian, it's called Buskato, and it's in 12
Okay.
8. But the 12 is actually a bar of 7 8 and a bar of 5 8. So it's 3 2 2 3 2. So it's
So
like
you're
bop do bop 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 do bop bop do bop 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 do bop bop do bop
you're
bop bop do bop bop. So you're playing the bar seven and bar five. So he'd say to the drummer, "Okay, just follow me." He wouldn't tell him the time signature. The drummer doesn't have a clue as to what's going on because there's all these intricate melody and counter harmony lines going on. And so then my dad would get behind the drums. He'd pick up the sticks because the rest of the band would carry on. And he'd sit down and go, bop, 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 bop. And he just nailed the groove. And the drummers would be like, "What the hell? I thought you were the sax player." And so and he would always do that as a prank to drummers to just to not to humble them, but just to break the ice and to have fun with the rest of the gig. And then he would actually show them how to play the drums. And it wasn't busy. It wasn't complicated at all. It was just he'd break it down for them and he would show them how to play it. But he always did that as a prank to some of the best drummers in Canada. And boy, it was very humbling for a lot of them.
Yeah, but you can be the best musician on earth, but if you
Yeah,
don't know that style of at that moment with that like signature style, you can be screwed pretty fast.
yeah,
It's just like a there's people they do that. I saw one band in Mexico, in the north of Mexico a few years ago, that they were playing like a kind of a norteño rhythm, and the bass drum and the snare have a so weird, because it was not a drummer, it was a bass drum player and a snare drum player, and they have like a
okay,
kind of like a communication between them, but
yeah,
it was not something. It feels normal when you just watch the show, and you don't count, it sounds normal, but when you put attention on where's the kick and the snare, it was very weird. So if you don't know that, there's no way you can play that if they don't teach you that, you know what I mean? So it's very
yeah.
important to be in that ethnic stuff. But keeping going with that, the music make you travel a lot, make you travel a lot in Canada and US. So what can be the one of your, of course you have million of experiences, but your top three or top four of your best trip with music, like tour shows, like not in your hometown, bring you outside.
I've had so many different experiences, but let me tell you of an experience where I was not hired to play, and it
Okay.
came quite innocently and quite by not accident, but quite unexpectedly. So, my wife and I were in Paris with
Okay.
another couple, and we had just arrived in Paris, and we went to the concierge and said, "Where's the best jazz club in Paris?" This would be 1990, I think. Maybe 98. Yeah, 1998. And so the guy said, "Well, I think it's called the Belle Bouquet." And yet he says, I don't think you can get in because it's always packed. They have the best jazz. It's the best jazz club in Paris. So he called, he got us in. He said the seat is not very good. It's up on the second floor. It's kind of near the bathrooms. You can't see the band, but you can hear the music. So we went, okay, that's fine. So we get seated, and I said to the group, I said, I want to go wash my hands. And as I came back, and my wife and the woman we were with were kind of giggling. "Oh, what's so funny? Oh, you'll see, you'll see." So then this guy comes up to the table. He goes, "La batterie, la batterie." I went,
But,
"Oui," and I apologize, Eric, but that's the extent of my French. And so
that's
I
fine.
wish I was far more conversant. But he says, "Come, come, come." So then the waiters and the waitresses all came, took our food, took like all the hors d'oeuvres we had, took everything, and they're all of a sudden, right in front of the stage, a table appears, and we get seated there. And so I sit down, and then the drummer grabs me by the shoulders and he pulls me up
Like,
to the
let's go.
stage. Let's go. So I sit down, and the guy said, he started speaking to me in French. I
In
went,
French.
"Oh, I'm so sorry." I said, "English, please." And he goes, "Okay, what do you want to play?" I said, "Anything. I don't care. We just count it in." Surprised me. So he picked A Train, Duke Ellington. So of course I know the tune. We trade eights on it. So it worked out okay. And I put the sticks down on the tom tom. I go, "Merci beaucoup." And the bass player, he puts his hand on the shoulder. Boom, he pushes me down. Okay,
Okay.
I guess I got to play again. So I ended up playing an hour and a half set with them, a whole hour and a half. And by that time, the drummer got on his cell phone and he called all the drummers from around. And there was about, I don't know, 6 or 7 drummers that came in to hear me play at this jazz club. And he's sitting with my wife and he's putting his arm around my wife as I'm playing. He's having fun. And so at the end of it, which was so beautiful, was they were asking me, "Where did you study drums? Where did you learn how to play like that?" And they said, "Have you heard of John Riley?" I said, "Well, as a matter of fact, I just finished his drum book because I love drum books, so I buy them. I teach
Yep.
myself through them. I know you have a
Yep.
great drum book. Everybody buy Eric's drum book, please. Do yourself a favor, get Eric's drum book now." But anyways, so Beyond Bop was his book, and so I ended up going through the book, and I was telling them about that, and they were saying, "Yeah, that's the guy we're studying from too." And there was such a camaraderie, there was such a beautiful openness. Everybody went, "Well, how are you approaching this? How are you approaching that?" And I said, one of the things I do when I'm studying is if I play something right-handed, I always play at 40 in the metronome. Like that's where I begin everything, and
Yep.
my whole day begins and ends very, very slow. It's almost meditative, and
Yep.
so I said, once I do it right-handed, I do it left-handed. And so I try and be equal in terms of my independence. And so, they like that idea because nobody had said that to them. And just that simple idea of, whatever you learn right-handed, you learn left-handed. Well, I learned that many years ago, but I happened to have finished the Riley book left-handed after I went through it right-handed because I'm naturally a right-handed drummer. And so they like that idea. And, that kind of cultural exchange between drummers in Europe and drummers from Canada or North America, that doesn't happen a lot here. It does happen, but there it just seems so natural. It flowed so beautifully. I love that experience, and I was so grateful for those guys. I'll give you one other example quickly.
Yeah, for sure.
So let me think about this. 1989, my wife and I go to the Dominican Republic. And we
Yep.
stayed at a place called the Eurotel. And it's the second day. We're fried. We were in the sun. We'd been in too long. It's almost 11:30 in the morning, and it was very hot. And so, I said, I got to go back in. I'm just boiling. So I'm going back into the hotel, and I hear this band rehearsing. So I go and knock on the door. I say, "I'm a professional drummer. Can I come in and listen?" They're like, "Okay, that's fine." So I meet the drummer. I tell him I'm a drummer, and I said, "What kind of sticks do you use?" And the guy from the Dominican Republic, his name was Hector Cabrera.
Oh,
Hector
you're
Cabrera had to get his sticks from Mexico, from the Eurotel in Mexico, and he was paying an unbelievably high amount of money back then for those sticks. And I always carry a brick of sticks with me because I play, Headhunters drumsticks. I've played them for decades. Headhunters Triple B, the maple sticks. And I
yep.
said, "Oh, I'll give you some of my sticks." And he was like, I said, "No, really, I'll go to my hotel room right now. I'll go get them for you." So I come down. I give him a few pairs of drumsticks. If I gave him gold bars, he would not have
We'd
been
be the
as
same.
appreciative.
No.
He would start crying. He started crying because I gave him my drumsticks. He never had like brand new drumsticks. And so, and Dave Rundle at Headhunters Drumsticks
Yeah, Dave
is
is
kind
great.
enough. Yeah, Dave's the best, and he's such a
Yep.
creative genius, and he's so humble about it. But and Headhunters make so much more than just drumsticks, of course,
Yep.
brushes and all the different things,
Effects.
bangers and
Yep.
spliffs and all that stuff. But he was, Dave puts my name on my drumsticks because I am an elderly man. I'm a senior citizen now. Just in case I forget who I am, and somebody says, "Who do you think you are?" It's like, well, let me look at my drumstick. I can tell you, I'm Dan Bodanis. That's right.
It
Okay,
is.
but I give him a pair of my drumsticks, so he was grateful. The next day. The very next day, Kelly and I are lying out by the pool. And again, it's like 11 o'clock. We're already baking. And I said to Kelly, I gotta go in. And then all of a sudden I hear this drumming. And I'm hearing the merengue drumming, but it's not one guy. It sounds like a drum
That
line.
guy.
And I'm thinking, how many guys are there? It sounds like there's like 20, 25 guys. He called every drummer who was a friend of his that worked in all the hotels, and there had to
Good.
be 20 of them. They brought their drums and they taught me how to play the merengue beside the pool while all these people are around us and they're singing the song. And I'm playing this beautiful rhythm, which I'd never learned how to play because I don't really play hand drums that much. But, it's just like that giving and that gift of being the camaraderie of being a drummer in a different country and to experience that. Well, by the end of the trip, I gave him every drumstick I had in my suitcase, which was probably, I don't know, 10 pair, 12 pair. And he had a drum that he played the merengue on since he was a little boy, and he gave that to me. And
Wow.
that was such a meaningful thing because that was his most prized possession. He was very poor. All he had is his drum, right? And so he gave me that drum. And so, you talk about experiences internationally. I've played great gigs. I've played with people like a lot of very named
A lot.
people, but it's that kind of an experience where I'm in Paris at a jazz club and we're talking about John Riley's drum book, or a bunch of local drummers in the hotel in the Dominican Republic are teaching me how to play the merengue just because I give the guy drumsticks. Oh, and the other thing too is he never learned how to play paradiddles. So I showed him some of the stone stuff, some of the variations on a paradiddle, and like you take the first part of a paradiddle, right, left, right, right, left, left, and then accent the next one, left, right, left, right, right, left, right, and then right, left, right. So you just displace the
It's
accent
just,
by one note. Oh, that was
yep.
like the heavens had parted and the secrets of the universe were parted on him. And so he was so grateful. And so those to me are the greatest experiences that I've
For
had
sure.
in traveling as a drummer.
Yeah, it's true because the thing is like back in the days, the internet was not there. Well, to get the information, it was pretty hard. Uh, well, back when I was in college, was we're talking about DVD or
Yeah,
tape cassette, like
yeah, yeah,
like
yeah.
VHS or like beta cassette stuff like that.
Yes,
So
yes.
or drum book. So that I remember like I think I was telling one drummer friend like a long time ago. I remember that when I've seen the first Terry Bozzio like DVD package, the big one with all the books. One guy purchased it, and it was so rare. He was renting this $5 per week for people can watch. We're talking back in the days, and people
Yeah,
doing it like just to look at that and just learn from these guys. Because I'm same with like Peter Eskin, Weckel, Vinny. They have their DVDs, so was a it was the way you could learn things back in the days. And yes, it's very expensive in countries. I went to Cuba a long time ago in a
yeah,
trip, and I have an old pair of in-ears. We're talking about 2007 or 8, and it was my backup in-ears. And I changed the connector because they were very old just for traveling. And I remember to seeing one of the guy, and he came at me. He's like, I'm a musician. I'm like, cool, me too. We start chatting. He never seen in ears in his life, so he knew what is headphones, but not in ears. So I gave it to him at the end. It was like a 200 $300 pair of in ear, but they were
yeah,
so old. I had it for 2 3 years, playing all the time with them. So he was so happy. Gold bar would be the same or less. For him it
yeah,
was the start of something. So yeah, that's great. Time fly, but I wanted to ask you. I know that you played in a young at a young age in a big band, but what I was surprised is like when I realized that a few years ago you uh, push your own big band. You have the Dan Bonanis big band. You're playing. You have, and what I like, and I've seen picture and videos. You have all the layout. Like to do it traditional big band from. How that idea came from? Is it because you had that background, or one day you wanted to have like a full real big band with the full brass section? or it's just like a trip as a drummer, you wanted to play that style? What was the idea behind to start your own big band? Because it's not easy to do that.
The answer is yes, 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 and
Yes,
yes.
yes, yes,
And
yes.
also marry the right woman. Because I'll tell you, so I grew up because my father made sure I could read music really, really well. And maybe for another time, I'll tell about my Hungarian drum teacher who was a maniac. And
Okay.
if you think that the movie, what was that movie with the drummer, the crazy,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
you know the
You
one I
are,
mean?
yeah, yeah. You're
Uh,
asking if we have a chat, people can text in the chat. So during
Yes.
yeah.
Anyways, the name of the movie slips me right now, but I couldn't watch that movie for 2 years because of the PTSD I have from studying with my drum teacher, where I got hit every lesson, literally hit.
Literally.
And I thought, well, I mean, that was called a very, very bad name in Hungarian, and I thought that bad name in Hungarian, which I won't repeat, was my actual name. I thought that was Dan in Hungarian, and I didn't find out till many years later that it wasn't. But the thing is that. Because he drove me so hard to become a really good reader. And my
Okay.
father always said to me, Dan, you got to learn every style. You got to be able to read really, really well. And so I became a big band drummer very early in my career. Like I was still a teenager playing in all the top Toronto big bands, and except for the Boss Brass, that was always Terry Clark's domain. And Terry Clark was one of my heroes, as was Claude Rongier, and some other Toronto drummers. But the point is that I could sight read anything, and I felt very comfortable with that. And I got a lot of studio work at a very young age. Again, because I could sight read, I could play well to a click, and that was all part of being a studio drummer at the time. And I was doing sometimes 2 and 3 sessions a day, every single day. And I was on the TV show Live It Up for a long time. But when I played big band, there was something inside me when I was playing that it just from watching Buddy Rich to watching Butch Miles with the Count Basie Orchestra. There was something I connected with in there that has never left me since I was a little boy. And I'm so grateful for my father for introducing me to all that stuff and taking me to those kinds of concerts. And um, the second week of the global pandemic, March 2020, this is a bad
Yep.
time for the world. And I'm watching Netflix practicing because I practice on this E-pad that I get from California from my buddy Ed Eblin. They're amazing drum pads. And I love his pad. I practice 2 to 3 hours every day, just on my hands with the metronome, always, always with the metronome. And I don't practice fast. It's more so about flow and making sure all my interpartials are in time and all the rest of it. But I'm sitting there practicing. I just finished watching John Wick. And then
Yep.
when John Wick was over, there was a commercial on Netflix and it said, excuse me, all or nothing at all. New Frank Sinatra special. So I thought, oh, I love the music of Frank Sinatra, and especially when he was in Vegas live at the Sands. And so they go through his life, and then when it got to the Sands, it was with the Count Basie Orchestra. Quincy Jones was the musical director, and I got lit up. I got goosebumps. I was so inspired and so motivated. Oh, I can't even tell you. It took my breath away. And I came downstairs. I said to Kelly, and this is why I said it's important to have the right wife.
Person.
I said to Kelly, I said, you got to see the special, Frank Sinatra, the big band. Oh man, I'd love to play in a big band right now because there was no gigs for anybody when the pandemic started. They all dried up.
Yep.
And Kelly said to me, quote unquote, Dan, why don't you start your own big band?
Why not?
My wife said to me, why don't you start your
Why
own
not?
big band? How many
Yep.
wives would ever say that? So that's like herding cats, right? That's like the impossible task. It's an incredible expense. So I made a call to two people. I called first Tom Skublix. Tom Skublix is a friend of music for over 40 years. He used to play saxophone with Ella Fitzgerald. So he's a world class saxophone player. And so I called Tom and I said, Tom, I got a really bad idea. I want you to talk me out of it. He goes, what is it? I said, I want to start my own big band. He goes, oh, that's a terrible idea. Are you kidding? You know how much money that's going to cost? That's a headache. Ah, forget it. I'm in. He said, I'm totally in because we've had so many good musical experiences over 40 years of friendship and musical sharing stages together. And so then the next call went to Pat LaBarbera. And
Okay.
Pat LaBarbera is a legend. Pat LaBarbera played lead tenor saxophone, and he was the booker for the Buddy Rich Orchestra. And
Wow.
I've been lucky that I've shared a stage in my band with Pat LaBarbera for, oh God, I don't know, 30 years. So, and he also played with Elvin Jones for many, many years. He toured the world. So, and he's played with Louis Bellson and all the great drummers. And so I called Pat and I said, this is what I want to do. And Pat, I would be honored if you'd please play first tenor in my band. He says, Dan, I'm there. No problem. Start her up. Let's get going.
Let's go.
So And I said, but I want to do it a little bit differently, and I want to start with the idea of having Frank Sinatra music, and I want to play the original stuff. So I want you to give me the phone numbers of Nancy and Tina. And he said, Nancy and Tina who? I said, Sinatra. He goes, Dad, I don't know those people. I go, yeah, but you played with Frank, right? You played with their dad. He goes, yeah, I
Why
played with
not?
their dad in the 70s at Caesar's Palace. He said, we had a few weeks off with Buddy Rich. And so Frank and his manager came in the last night we were at Caesar's with Buddy's band. And he said, he actually asked Buddy, could I borrow your tenor sax player for a few weeks? And that's the beginning of our musical friendship. And Frank liked my playing. I loved playing with him. We'd always have polite conversation, but I didn't really know the man that well. But I definitely don't know his daughters
Uh,
then. But
yes.
my brother John LaBarbera, who did a lot of those great arrangements for the Buddy Rich Orchestra, he's in charge of the music program at the University of Indiana. He says, John LaBarbera is my brother. I'll set him up on a call for you. He knows everybody. He can help you get connected to buy those arrangements. So, Eric, it cost me a lot of money. I went
For
to
sure.
Doug DeBoff at eJazz Online. I got all the Sinatra arrangements that I wanted to play. And so then, I paid that off over a period of time. And then I commissioned a gentleman named Chris Byers. Chris Byers is the in-house arranger and the conductor and the writer for the WDR Big Band in Germany. And so
Okay.
I commissioned him to be the staff writer for my big band. Also, my friend Randy Waldman, who I've had a friendship with for many, many, many years. Randy Waldman gave me some charts for my big band because he's got the Wigged Out album where Vinnie Colaiuta plays drums and the Unreal album where Vinnie plays drums. And my student Mark Atkinson wrote the Unreal drum book, which I edited for him and I wrote the forward to. And so, I've got really good arrangers who've helped me because there's two sides to my band. There's the side for employment and enjoyment. That's where we play Frank Sinatra, play Fly Me to the Moon, and everybody loves that. And they go home with a good feeling, and the band
Yep.
likes, that. And then there's the other side where we're playing the Randy Waldman arrangements or the Chris Byers WDR big band arrangements, where they go home going, man, I got to practice. These are really hard. And even the best players come and they sweat. And so I wanted to raise the bar for the big band community because everybody plays boss brass arrangements or Count Basie arrangements or Maynard Ferguson or Buddy Rich. And so I wanted to move the bar ahead, to raise the bar. I'm going to digress. I'll say one of the greatest drummers in Canada is Vito Rezza. And I don't know if you know Vites, but
Yep.
that's a
Oh
guy
yeah.
who's got his own band, 5 After 4.
Yep.
He's recorded albums where Vinnie Colaiuta is in the right channel and Vito's in the left channel. They've recorded together, and Vito's at that level. He's a world class guy. But what Vito does is he's always pushing to get better, and he's trying to explore, and he's trying to move beyond whatever his previous limitations are. And I'm thinking, why can't we take that same philosophy like a Vito Rezza, where he's always trying to expand the capacities and reinvent himself, and do that with the big band? So I've been trying to do that, and it's been frustrating. And it's been frustrating because in the old days when you would get a band and guys would like want to play in the band and they rehearse every day. It's not like that in Toronto. Toronto is different than LA or New York or Paris. Toronto is a gig-based economy. So in other words, if you've got a gig and it pays a certain amount of money, a guy will say, okay, I'll give you one or two rehearsals for that kind of money, and that's it. But they don't necessarily want to commit to being in a band and put
Yep.
in all the work to learning all the sax solos where you got to spend hours every day like working on the
Be
intricacies of those
there.
sax
Yep.
lines. Yeah,
Yep.
otherwise, it doesn't sound good. And so Toronto's not that dedicated in terms of being like in a band. Whereas if you're in the Village Vanguard big band or Wynton Marsalis's big band in New York, those guys covet those positions, they earn them, and then they keep them and protect them. And if they have to sub out, they send in a really, really good sub, but then they're right back there and they don't miss any rehearsals if they can possibly, not miss them. Toronto's different. Toronto's entirely different. So my
Different.
frustration is finding guys who want to dedicate themselves to being in the band and doing the work away from the rehearsal, so that when you come to rehearsal, it's just polishing it and making sure there's a cohesive chemistry. When if there's a big sax solo section when there's a lot of notes, and or if there's an impossible tempo or time changes or metric modulation, where guys have to, they have to have done their homework to be able to read, because this is not stuff you can sight read. Even I've got the best readers and the best players, in my band, but even they're challenged with this stuff for sight reading. But to get them to do the homework before, they're all so busy and they're all first call session guys, so they don't have the time to. And I'm not defending them, but I'm looking for that combination of 19 musicians.
That's
We're all on that
step.
same page. Yeah, to raise the bar.
There's that. Yeah, jumping another step. Yeah, and but it's hard because to manage a lot of musician because you sometimes you're in a project you're 4 person and it's complicated when you have a full brass section, the drum, the bass, the but you have a good concept for make like dinner show, like Christmas show. You have like this can be adapted to so many flavors, so I think it's a good idea. But I was just curious because there's people like you're very dedicated, but it's not everybody will say okay, I'm gonna do that, and because it's really you have to really takes times to do it well because people doesn't realize that because you purchase the rights, the like I mean like charts and stuff, but sometimes you have to do some adaptation, you have to rearrange things. It's not just for the guitar player and the bass player, it's for the full section of brass, so you have a lot of things going in. uh Everything, a lot of things are involved in that move, so congratulations for that. It's a great project that you started, and I wish you can play that for a long time. Time fly, but I have a few other questions. First, you're since I know you, you always have been the guy like you have crazy drum, like something coming out from nowhere, like amazing. You're the only one to have one thing, like for example, you had a Yamaha like maple custom, but with uh, the the new lug at back in the days with the white marine pearl, and I knew you were the only one in Canada. You always have things like that, and I know now you have like a few snare, you have a good snare collection. I, I think beside you're very passionate about playing music. I think you always have been really driven by drums, and you have a passion going around the drums. Like I mean, the drums are around. I mean, surrounding the drum. So, what are you the type of person you don't really care about necessarily the brand? You will buy something, you're really into it. Let's say you find a snare that you like, you will purchase it, or you're more like you will go for the sound it's gonna give you. What's your approach when for when you want to get a new piece of gear in your collection, for example?
Musical expression to me is the most important thing. Whatever I feel and whatever can flow through my body and my heart through a drum into creating music is what's most important to me. So, for many years I had a Yamaha endorsement, full endorsement, and I wrote a book, a business book, which is still on Amazon called Drumming Up Referrals. It's a business book, but I put a Yamaha Silver Sparkle Maple Custom drum kit in the front of the cover of that book with me, and
Yep.
that book has been for sale on Amazon for 25 years. So the point is that I've always been very dedicated to Yamaha because I love those drums. I love the way they sound, and I love the way they allow me to express myself. And we had the longest running jazz gig in Canadian history where we played 5 hours a night at the busiest jazz club in Toronto. And the long and short of it is that I played my Yamaha Phoenix kit. And, when I played the Yamaha Phoenix kit, beautiful drums, so expressive. I thought, oh, it doesn't get better than that. But then I started to find out that there are custom drum makers that are doing things differently than anyone else. And in terms of those drums, I'm telling you, they like the Yamaha drums. I love them. They're I want to say they're custom made. They're not quite custom made, but they've taken, I guess, the manufacturing process for mass manufacturing right to the I guess the pinnacle of perfection. But when you get to the custom made drums, these are guys who are uh, they're crazy dedicated to making something even better. And whether it's an aesthetic, a look, or whether it's a sound quality, because they're going to stave shells as opposed to steam bent shells. There's all these different things that they're such purists about in terms of designing a shell that will create a different sound. Then it's a matter of how does the drum that they just made, the aesthetic, but most important the sound, how does that allow me to express the music that I want to express as a professional drummer in the best way possible? So forgetting about any label, forgetting that it might be Yamaha or Gretsch or Ludwig or Sonar or DW, setting that aside, if you put a blindfold on me or anybody else, what drum would I pick to make the best music that I can possibly make? And
Yep.
so it got to the point where I discovered these people in Argentina, and they're called Ocho Catorce. And I'll spell it. It's OCHO. Catorce is CATORCE. Ocho Catorce. And then you see the numbers 814.
Yep.
814.
Yeah,
And when you
sure is
see, yeah, and when you see these drums, pay attention to them, because this is a uh, a family-oriented drum company that make instruments that are just so far beyond anything I've ever played in terms of just the quality of woods. They manufacture everything from the way they knurl the lugs to the way they've got it's called a Florentine hoop. It's a hybrid between a die cast hoop and a regular hoop. And so, excuse me, when you see these drums, you go, wow, these look fantastic. But then when you hear them, that's when you go, oh man, these are very special instruments. So fast forward to, I had an idea. We played a major jazz concert with my big band back on April 13th, and it sold out. My friend Carmen Spada, he's a fantastic impresario. He promotes music concerts. He got my band this gig, but he also arranged for a 10 camera 4K shoot from a local college of the fourth year media students. So, this is a wonderful experience. Carmen Spada set up for the Dan Bodanis big band, for myself. My son sat in and played drums, and he sounded fantastic. And, I thought, what am I going to do next? So I had this idea, and I'm going to show you the idea really quick. I know we're running out of time, but I'll tell you. I thought, we've got to do something to entertain the people. And this was paid for by the city of Mississauga. We got a great music city here. Thought, okay, what if I play the music of James Bond? Now, everybody's heard the music of James Bond, but rarely do you hear a big band go out and play that music. And, there's a James Bond movie called The Man with the Golden Gun. So I
Mhm.
thought, for fun, this is pure cheese, pure shtick, pure silliness, but marketing and to make it commercially acceptable to everybody. I thought, what about if I put together a concert of James Bond music and call it Dan with a Golden Drum? Man with a
Why not?
golden gun, Dan with a golden drum. So I thought about that. So I go online, I try and figure out who could make me a golden drum. And, of course, all the top companies are going to cost me a lot of money, like several $1,000s US dollars. And so I thought, okay, no, that's not good. And so I go on to Alibaba, and I find this drum manufacturer in China,
Okay.
PDH Leo. And I tell him what I want, and he sends me a video. Dan, do you think this might work? Here's the drum he made me. It's right here. Can you see this?
Oh, that's so
This
cool.
is one of the finest snare drums I've ever heard, I've ever seen, I've ever played. And right out of the box, let me see if I can find the badge. There's the badge right there.
Okay.
Beautiful 3D badge. And right out of the box, as soon as I hit it, Eric, I freaked out. I want to play the concert now, because I'm just going to put that down. Because the drum sounded so good. And you know what was interesting? The cost was a small fraction of what it would have cost me to get one of the other drum manufacturers to make this. And so I've been talking to Leo. He makes beautiful drums. He also made me look at this drum set. He sent this to me 2 weeks ago. This is burled walnut. I don't know if you can tell the grain in the wood. It's a high gloss burled walnut. It's perfectly made. The gold hardware, the special lugs and the hooks.
Yeah, it's
He's
very
just
good.
his attention to detail is phenomenal. Eric, these drums cost me. You know what? It's obscene how little they cost me. I don't even feel comfortable telling you the price, because
That's fine.
I told him,
Of the record.
I said, you know what? I'm sorry, you should charge like at least $3,500 minimum US for these drums.
Yeah,
So,
well,
the point is that having an instrument like this to allow me to express music, I'm now open to going beyond the labels and the names of the companies I used to be attached to and loyal to, and I still am. But now I've got custom made instruments that are at a different level. And I'd encourage everybody to go in and not be limited by anything.
well, congratulations. The time is up. Dan, I have to let you go. Sorry, we will do a part two because yeah, you have a lot to say and it's a very, very interesting. And I like first time I've seen these drums, and they look pretty good. I'm curious to try them in live. Well, thank you so much for your time. Thanks for the chat, and I hope you enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. I learned a lot about you, and on that, I wish you a good year. I wish you all the best, and let's try to keep in touch. Oh, I'm sorry. Where the people can catch you, like social media, quick, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube.
Just Dan Bodanis on Facebook, Dan Bodanis on Instagram. My security settings are high because I've got lots of celebrities as friends and that I play for. So just send me a
Yeah.
friend request. Tell them that you met Eric
Okay.
Boudreault, or you're a friend of
Yep.
of Erickson, and I'll let you in. But Eric, this has been my
Yeah.
privilege. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and I wish you a great a great show soon because I know you're playing all the time. So have a good night and talk to you soon. But done.
Thank you.
Bye bye. Take care. Bye.
Okay.
Thanks for Dan to be with us tonight. On that, I wish you a great night and see you next week.